So good morning, everyone. I'd like to get our meeting underway this morning. This is the public meeting of the Niagara Regional Police Services Board for Thursday, the 26th of September. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest by any of the board members this morning? Not seeing any. Our next items on the agenda is the minutes from the previous board meeting on Thursday, July 25th. I could have a mover and seconder for that. Moved by Member Eek, seconded by Vice Chair Steele. All in favor? Thank you. Next item is the minutes of the Public Finance Committee that was held on September the 12th. A mover and seconder again for that, please. Moved by Member Gibson, seconded by Member DeAngela. Show of hands in favor. So that item is carried. Next is reports from myself. Before I would begin this, I'd like to remind everyone in attendance that the Police Service Board meetings are being live streamed, and the video recording of today's meeting will be posted on the Police Services Board YouTube channel shortly. Tributes to our Indigenous land. The Board wishes to acknowledge and honor the land upon which we gather as the historic and traditional territory of First Nations people. In particular, we recognize and thank the Haudenosaunee and the Anasazi peoples for their stewardship of these lands over the millennia. We also wish to thank all First Nations people in Canada for their ongoing and important roles in caretaking of the lands beneath our feet whenever we travel on Turtle Island. The Ontario Police College March Past and Review Ceremony on August 1st, I was joined by Deputy Chief Brett Flynn. Were you the acting chief that day? I can't remember. And many other senior police personnel from across Ontario at the Ontario Police College for the March Past and Review Ceremony in recognition of those officers who graduated from the Ontario Police College Basic Training Program. A total of 446 new police recruits participated in the March Past, 4 of which now serve the Niagara Regional Police Service, after being officially sworn in as members of the service during a swearing-in ceremony held on August 22nd, which also included 1 new recruit for the Niagara Parks Police Service as well. Member Eek and I attended the recruit swearing-in ceremony where we had the opportunity to meet the new officers and their families. Canadian Association of Police Governance Annual Conference. The Canadian Association of Police Governance, also known as CAPG, hosted its 30th annual conference from August the 9th to 11th in Calgary, Alberta. The conference theme was entitled Community Safety, Community Service, and Community Strength. It drew hundreds of participants from across Canada, allowing unique opportunities to network and learn from and discuss various aspects of public safety and police governance. Member Eek, Member Gale, Member Gibson, our Executive Director, Ms. Reid, and I attended the conference. On August 29th, members Gale, McKendrick, and Board's Executive Director participated in the CPEG webinar entitled Media Training for Board Members Managing the Next Crisis. The webinars are offered on a monthly basis as an educational resource and keep boards and police executive apprised of issues currently impacting the police community. These webinars, by the way, are absolutely excellent. Now, mind you, there's been the odd one that has not been as great, but this one was very good. The Ontario Association of Police Services Board and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Zone 4 meeting, the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards and the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police Zone 4 quarterly meeting took place on September 24th. The meeting was held at Legends on the Niagara Golf Course in Niagara Falls and was hosted by the Niagara Parks Police Service. Vice Chair Steele, members DeAngela, Gale, Gibson, Eek, and Ms. Reid and I attended the meeting, and again there was excellent conversations and an extremely good presentation put on by Niagara Parks Police Service dealing with the issues that they face every day. Cops for Cancer fundraising initiative. The Niagara Regional Police Service hosted several events throughout the year in support of Cops for Cancer program, aimed in raising proceeds for the Canadian Cancer Society, including the Pediatric Cancer Research and Care Programs. Vice Chair Steele and I attended one of those events on August 16th at the Services Cops for Cancer fundraising dinner and elimination draw at the Croatian Hall in Welland. Also, as many are aware, from September 16th to the 20th, several of our members participated in the Cops for Cancer Tour de Golden Horseshoe, involving a 5-day, 500-kilometer bicycle journey that took place across the Niagara region and ventured into Halton as far as Oakville, and also included members of the Ontario Provincial Police, the RCMP, Halton Police, and the Niagara Regional Police Service. I believe there was also a stop at the Children's Hospital in Hamilton as well. And I'll also point out that this year it was 500K, whereas last year it was only 400K. So a little bit more of a challenge for everyone. The tour included official opening and closing ceremonies at which I attended on behalf of the board. And I must say they arrived on time at the end, and everyone looked reasonably tired out. I don't think they wanted to do another 100K after that, but I was extremely impressed with all of those involved and also the members of this service that put in their time and effort. A lot of training went into that. Niagara Regional Police in-house United Way barbecue on September the 19th. The service held its in-house kickoff of the BBQ in support of the 2019 United Way campaign. The event took place here at headquarters and together with members raised over $500 to kickstart their donation contributions and campaign to the United Way. Members D'Angelo and Eek attended this event on behalf of the board. The board and service have been longtime supporters to a variety of charitable organizations, and annual donations are made throughout the year to further support fundraising initiatives involving the police. The National Police Memorial Service on September 29th, coming up, I will be joining the Niagara Regional Police Service to attend the 2019 National Police Memorial Service on Parliament Hill in Ottawa. The memorial service honors Canadian fallen comrades and ensures that the magnitude of their sacrifices will never be forgotten. The focus of the memorial on unsung heroes and surviving families of those brave men and women who died in the line of duty for our police services across Canada. Christian French Child Advocacy Center for Niagara. On the 3rd of October, I will be joining members of the service at the Christian French Child Advocacy Center of Niagara for the 4th annual Spotlight Gala at the Americana Resort in Niagara Falls. The gala will contribute and commemorate the ongoing work that is being done throughout our local communities to help our children and youth who have either witnessed or have been victims of physical or sexual abuse or have been subject to acts of internet luring. The Ontario Association of Police Services Board 2019 Labor Seminar. The Ontario Association of Police Services Board will host its annual labor seminar on October 10th and 11th at 4 Points Sheraton, Toronto Airport Hotel. The annual labor seminar is designed to provide various representatives of the policing community with an opportunity to participate in panel discussions on coordinating collective bargaining and other current labor issues. Vice Chair Steele, members D'Angelo, Gibson, and McKendrick, the board's executive director, and I will be attending the seminar on behalf of a board. Joint Regional and Police Facilities Steering Committee. As my role as chair of the board's Accommodation and Steering Committee, I regularly attend the Joint Region and Police Facilities Steering Committee. Since the board meeting held in July, the site for one district in St. Catharines has advanced significantly, and a lot of progress has been made, which I will show very quickly by pushing this button. Good. This was the view back on Monday the 23rd. I hadn't been out there for almost 4 weeks. What's interesting is the 2 silos, which actually aren't, they're actually stairways and elevator shafts, are now basically complete. The day I was there, a monsoon rainstorm hit while I was about halfway through. I can tell you one thing, I do have a waterproof camera. I now realize that. And it was quite the storm, and it came up real suddenly. Anyway, they were going to pour the second-story component of the bigger tower that you see there. That, I think, by now has been completed, but they held off because of weather. All the outside construction is now done on the perimeter. I call it the perimeter, which is basically the foundation walls. You can see that there. And they're in the process of installing all the underground services So you have hydro lines, water lines, and eventually what you see there as earth will eventually be covered with concrete, which will be the slab foundation. So a lot of work has taken place, and in speaking to the foreman on site from Merritt Construction, they're still anticipating of getting this building closed in before the bad weather sets in December. And that is basically it. The next meeting of the Joint Region and Police Facility Steering Committee is scheduled for October 1st and then again on October 22nd. I will be attending these meetings, and I will be able to provide a further update at the 24th of October board meeting. A heads up for everyone, the upcoming Police Services Board meetings. The next PSB committee meeting is a special Public Finance Committee meeting, which will be held on Thursday, October the 3rd at 9:30 in the community room here. At this meeting, the service will present its 2020 draft operating budget to the board, and the next board meeting will be held on Thursday, October 24th at 8:30. Please pay attention to this component. It is being held in Pelham / Font Hill in the council chamber, so it will not be here at headquarters. The Niagara Regional Police Service will open the meeting with a public presentation and provide information about local community safety issues, and members of the community are encouraged to attend and engage with both the board members and the police staff. Further details will be made available closer to the meeting date, and just to point out to everyone, 3 years ago, the board decided to promote awareness of its role of the board and to stay in touch with community concerns over policing issues by holding the first off-site meeting, which was held in Port Colborne. Building on the success of that meeting, the board wanted to continue to be proactive in engagement and education and hearing from the public and hold at least 2 off-site meetings each year. So this is our second meeting for 2019. In 2017, the board met at the town of West Lincoln in the city of Welland. In 2018, the board met in the town of Fort Erie and the town of Niagara Lake. And in May of this year, the board met in the township of Wainfleet. And the October meeting, as I pointed out, will be in Pelham, and that will conclude the off-site meetings for this year. These off-site meetings were set in collaboration with the mayor, Frank Campion, and Mayor Wayne Radicop, along with previous serving political leaders, in recognition of the added value to hold police service board meetings at their council chambers so citizens can participate and inquire into anything police-related. By holding meetings at these locations, other than police headquarters, it makes board members more accessible and connected to different communities in our great region. So that is my report from this morning. I will turn it to Acting Chief Brett Flynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. I should just first advise you that due to the fact that you do not meet as in a public setting in August, yes, my report is just slightly lengthy this month. It'll be covering 60 days. Thanks again, Chair, for your report, and I think you've mentioned a few of the items that I do have, so I'll try and be brief on those issues. With respect, as you mentioned, to the recent recruit graduation, just wanted to add on to your comments that Niagara Regional Police Recruit Constable Justin Blanchfield rose to a level of distinction during his time at the Ontario Police College, and he was named Parade Commander, as you recall, during the March past. So just in short, congratulations to Constables Blanchfield, Ryan DeJulie, Jesse Esau, Kayla McLaren, who was our speaker during the graduation here in Niagara, and to Niagara Parks Constable Mitchell Henry for their achievements to date. Very proud of them, and their families were very proud of them during the ceremonies, and we look forward to their continued success. With respect to the Cops for Cancer Tour de Golden Horseshoe, I just wanted to add that as a service, we're incredibly proud of the leadership that our members have taken in this initiative. The participants visited, I believe it was this year, 23 schools during those 5 days. And as of the concluding date, Mr. Chair, that you were at, the total for the funds raised was $150,000. So I just want to recognize and offer my thanks and the Chief's thanks to all of our participants, our supporters, and our sponsors for that initiative. I want to make the board aware that since we last met, the Chief has received notices from the province's Special Investigations Unit regarding the closure of 3 cases, all from 2018. In each case, the interim director of the SIU advised that there were no grounds for criminal charges against any officer, and he also expressed no concerns in his letters. So the first of those is SIU case closure 69610, and the details of that case are as follows. July 21st of 2018, personnel from one district responded to a disturbance in the parking lot of an apartment building on Glendale Avenue in St. Catharines. Information received by the officers upon arrival was that a domestic situation had occurred between a female, her boyfriend, and an ex-boyfriend, and it was determined that the ex-boyfriend who had fled the scene was arrestable for domestic assault and breach of recognizance. Officers established a perimeter and utilized a canine unit which commenced a search. The suspect was located in a backyard, jumped a fence, and fled into a field, ignoring police commands to stop. Suspect was pursued by the canine handler, the dog, and an escort officer. An interaction subsequently occurred during the arrest of the suspect, which resulted in the suspect receiving a facial injury from a dog bite. The suspect was transported by ambulance to hospital where it was deemed that his injury was serious, and as a result, the SIU was notified and invoked their mandate. On August 20th of this year, our service received notification of this closure. The next case began in October 4th of 2018 when a caller reported to police that her 19-year-old son had left their residence threatening suicide, and there was also an indication that the son was en route towards a bridge. Service members in one district immediately responded to the Burgoyne Bridge, and a constable located the male on the bridge. There was a brief interaction. However, the officer was unsuccessful in preventing the male from harming himself as the male turned from the officer and jumped over the guardrail onto the lanes of the 406 below. The male was pronounced deceased at the scene. As a result of the brief interaction between the officer and the male, subsequently following to his death, the SIU was notified and invoked their mandate, designating one subject officer and 4 witnesses. It was September 13th of this year that the chief received notification of the closure. And the final of the SIU cases was on Sunday, September 2nd. Officers responded to a licensed establishment in Grimsby, that's of this year, September 2nd, regarding a 55-year-old male who had just left the premise operating a motor vehicle. There was an indication that the male had been consuming alcoholic drinks, prior to his departure and was likely impaired. Officers located the male at his residence where he was spoken to. Officers investigated and then left the residence as there were no grounds for arrest at that time. Approximately 2 hours later, we received another call for service regarding the same male harassing patrons at the licensed establishment, I believe via phone calls. As a result, officers reattended the residence to speak with him. The male subsequently exited the residence in an aggressive manner, walking towards the officer with a baseball bat in his hand. The officer, as a result, grounded the male and took him into custody. Subsequent medical treatment revealed that he had a broken nose. As a result of this injury, the SIU was notified and again invoked their mandate. On Friday, September 20th, the service received notification of this closure. For 2019, with respect to reporting homicides and attempt homicides for this year, we stand at 5 homicides and 1 attempt. From this reporting period, on Saturday, August 10th, 2019, the 2 district uniform officers responded to a long-term care facility in Niagara on the Lake regarding a female who had sustained a serious injury. Officers arrived and an investigation followed that it was discovered that on a previous evening, a 73-year-old male resident had pushed a 94-year-old female resident The female sustained life-threatening injuries and was transported to the Greater Niagara General site by ambulance. On Tuesday, August 20th, the victim succumbed to her injuries. An investigation was entered into, which included our homicide unit, a review of all the circumstances in this matter. The suspect in this case, the 73-year-old male, was identified as having serious cognitive issues. In consultation with the Crown Attorney's Office, it was later determined that criminal charges would not be pursued in this matter. In Fort Erie on September 20th, 5 district officers responded to a call for assistance in the Niagara River near Jarvis Street and Niagara Boulevard in Fort Erie. Information was received that 3 persons were in the water and in need of assistance. The 3 persons were described as an adult male, an adult female, and a young child. A nearby resident, hearing the commotion, rescued the mother and the child from the water. They were both transported to the hospital, where it was determined that the child was expected to recover. As we're aware through reports recently, the mother passed away the following day. And also on that day, the deceased body of a 28-year-old male was recovered from the water. Subsequent investigation has indicated to our members that this was an apparent attempt by the 28-year-old male to end the child's life. The mother of the child is believed to have entered the water in an effort to rescue her child. The citizen who rescued the mother and the child from the water will obviously, by us, at the very least, be recognized for his very brave actions. As tragic as this event is, a 5-year-old child is alive today, and we should take some comfort in that. On behalf of our Chief of Police, thanks go to our members and other emergency service workers who responded to this event, and the surviving family members are in our thoughts. I have the traffic fatality reports for July and August to report as well. There were 7 fatal motor vehicle collisions and 1 life-threatening injury in the months of July and August. For the board's awareness of the 12 fatalities the service has attended to this year, it has been determined that 4 are believed to have been caused by a medical condition which occurred prior to the actual event. So after 7 months in the calendar year, we've therefore experienced 8 MTO reportable fatal collisions. Our running 5-year average is just over 15. From the incidents that occurred during this time period, on July 3rd, officers responded to a collision where a motor vehicle had struck a tree in front of a residence on Portage Road in Niagara Falls. Investigation revealed that the vehicle was being operated by a 55-year-old male. The vehicle had veered crossing into oncoming traffic before striking a tree. It was ultimately determined that the driver had suffered a fatal medical event prior to the incident. On July 5th, our officers responded to the area of Albert and Lake Street in St. Catharines, again for a motor vehicle collision where 1 person was reported to be without vital signs. A 55-year-old male was found to have been operating his vehicle, veering from its lane, striking an unoccupied motor vehicle. The victim was transported to the St. Catharines site of the NHS and then to an out-of-region hospital where he was pronounced deceased. And again, it was ultimately determined that the male had suffered from a fatal medical episode while driving. On July 5th of this year, officers responded to Discovery Park at 360 Niagara Street in St. Catharines for a lawn tractor that had struck a tree in the park, again with a driver with vital signs absent. Investigation revealed that a 74-year-old male, an employee for the city, had suffered a fatal medical episode while operating the tractor and was pronounced at the scene. On July 9th, police responded to Thorold Town Line Road for a report of a serious 2-vehicle collision. A dump truck had been traveling northbound on Town Line Road, and a Honda CRV had been traveling southbound on Town Line. For an unknown reason, the CRV veered into the northbound lane, striking the dump truck head-on. The lone 63-year-old female occupant of the Honda was pronounced at the scene. The lone male occupant of the dump truck was uninjured. The cause of this accident has been attributed by our reconstruction unit as either an undiagnosed medical event or a driver error at this time. The fifth incident occurred on July 20th on Netherby Road at South Brookfield Road in Niagara Falls, and was involving a motorcycle. The investigation determined that the motorcycle was being operated by a 51-year-old male on Netherby Road. For an unknown reason, the motorcycle drifted from the road, striking a guardrail. The cause of this accident has also been attributed to the male suffering from an undiagnosed medical event prior to the accident or to his driving error. On August 16th, the male operator of a motorcycle was involved in a collision with another motor vehicle at the intersection of Woodlawn and River Road in Welland. The operator received fatal injuries. Circumstances in this incident resulted in an SIU investigation, and the SIU ultimately invoked their mandate. So I will provide further details regarding this matter to the board in the confidential portion of today's meeting. Lastly, on August 17th, our officers responded to Concession Road 7 near Line 6 in the town of Niagara-on-the-Lake regarding an accident where a vehicle had fled the scene. A female pedestrian was located on the roadway with serious injuries, and our investigation determined that the 30-year-old female was walking southbound on Concession Road 7 and was struck by a pickup truck. It was reported the driver made no attempt to stop and fled the scene. The pedestrian was transported by ambulance to the Greater Niagara General and then to an out-of-area hospital. On August 19th, the pedestrian died from her injuries, and on August 21st, a 21-year-old male was identified as the driver and arrested for the offenses of failing to remain at the scene of an accident and dangerous operation of a motor vehicle causing death. My apologies, I also have one serious injury, MVC, to report, and that was on August 18th when officers responded to Mississauga Street near William Street in Niagara-on-the-Lake regarding a single motor vehicle versus pedestrian incident. It was determined that a vehicle was being driven on Mississauga Street when a 76-year-old male pedestrian stepped out into traffic and was struck. The injuries were initially classified as life-threatening, and the pedestrian was transported via air ambulance. The severity of the injuries were later happily found to be less serious than previously thought, and the male is making a recovery at this time. The accident in this case was attributed to pedestrian error. In the news during the summer months, I have a number of stories to report to the board. The first one being the Niagara Falls bike thefts from this year. With warmer summertime temperatures, the service reminded cyclists to lock it or lose it, as we do each summer, in an effort led by Inspector McCaffrey, who's here today. During these months, the number of reported stolen bikes tends to rise, and they range from low to high-end models, road bikes, and mountain bikes. They're easy targets for thieves who are able to remove them quickly from exterior bike locks, bike racks left overnight through the use of bolt cutters or similar devices. A street crime unit this year dedicated resources to patrolling known locations of bike thefts in an effort to make a proactive approach to this issue. As a result, approximately 20 stolen bicycles were recovered, and some have remained unclaimed at this point. Residents are asked to contact Constable Craig Zoldos to inquire about recovered stolen bicycles, and Craig is a member of our street crime unit in Niagara Falls. Through the course of the investigations by our street crime unit, 19 persons have been arrested and charged. Obviously, we strongly encourage the public to report all incidents of bike thefts. If they're happening and we don't know about them, that's not a good thing. It helps us to tie together different crimes and focus in on the people that we think are responsible. On July 29th, we have a report of an impaired driver found with a large quantity of suspected fentanyl. As a result of calls from concerned citizens, our officers attended a rear parking lot at 51 East Main Street in Welland to check on the condition of a male. He was apparently unconscious and sitting in the driver's seat of a running motor vehicle. This investigation led to the arrest of a 34-year-old Welland man for impaired operation of a motor vehicle by drugs, possession of a Schedule I substance for the purpose of trafficking, and possession of proceeds of crime. An estimated $5,600 in suspected fentanyl was located in the vehicle and approximately $750 in currency. Beginning in June 19th, 2019, our region experienced a number of commercial break-and-enters where suspects were targeting cash drawers, cigarettes, lottery tickets, and vaping products. In a joint effort of all of our street crime units from Niagara Falls, Welland, and St. Catharines, working together with members of our Special Investigations Unit to investigate these crimes. On July 29th, search warrants were executed and 3 people were arrested in relation to these break-and-enters. Police seized stolen items from these break-and-enters along with other evidence. 2 males from Welland and a male from St. Catharines are facing various charges. I spoke to the sergeant in charge of our 2-district street crime unit last night, and I believe, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe there was over 20 commercial break-and-enters that were solved as a result of these arrests and this work. So my thanks to the street crime units and our crime analysts for working quickly and collaboratively to address this issue. We obviously recognize the terrible impact that property crime has on our local businesses and how difficult it is to recover from crimes like this. So I'm very pleased that we were able to make relatively quick arrests in these incidents. Several residents from across the Niagara region, Sudbury and Ottawa, faced numerous charges following a multi-jurisdictional investigation into a drug trafficking network that involved members and associates of outlaw motorcycle gangs. Project Skylark began as a high-level investigation targeting members of the Hells Angels Nomads, the Red Devils, and the Hooligans, and their association to a drug trafficking network. Members from these motorcycle gangs have facilitated the trafficking of cocaine, methamphetamine, and fentanyl throughout the Niagara region, Sudbury, and Ottawa areas. During the course of this investigation, the investigative team combined to seize 12.5 kilograms of cocaine, 12.2 kilograms of cannabis, 640 grams of shatter, which is a highly potent cannabis extract, 1,400 packages of cannabis edibles, fentanyl packages, 2,000 methamphetamine tablets, as well as HA and Red Devils motorcycle patches. Project Skylark investigators seized 11 firearms during the course of this investigation and 700 rounds of ammunition, $75,000 in Canadian currency, $30,000 in jewelry, multiple vehicles, including 3 motorcycles, and 1 residence were seized. 15 people have been charged with 195 offenses, including charges relating to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, the Criminal Code, and the Cannabis Act. I know that the board has heard from Chief McCullough on numerous occasions about the necessity that our service is prepared to work with our law enforcement partners from across Canada and certainly across our province to combat organized criminal groups. At best, we only ever see a piece of the puzzle, and Project Skylark is an excellent example of how we continue to find success in combating criminal activities that occur across municipal, provincial, and international borders. On August 2nd, 2019, at approximately 2 o'clock in the morning, officers were called to the Sundowner Adult Entertainment Bar on Lundy's Lane in Niagara Falls for the report of a shooting. The early part of the investigation determined that a motorcycle had entered the parking lot and the lone driver had fired multiple shots from a firearm. Following the shooting, the suspect fled the scene at a high rate of speed. Officers located 2 males suffering from gunshot wounds, and they were both treated and transported to out of the area hospitals for further care. Both victims were listed as serious condition at the time of their transportation. This investigation has led detectives to believe that this was a targeted incident, and that investigation is ongoing. A report of arrests made in relation to thefts from a cemetery. On Friday, August 2nd of this year, we began investigating thefts from a local cemetery. As the investigation unfolded, it became apparent that graves from some 289 grave sites, from 289 grave sites were stolen over several days. The loss incurred by these thefts affected not only the business, but obviously the families of the respective grave sites as well. Uniform officers and detectives from the 3-District Criminal Investigation Branch were aided in this investigation by our business community partners, and on Tuesday, August 6th, the investigation culminated with 4 arrests and the recovery of much of the stolen property, some of which had been damaged beyond repair. On August 2nd, officers were called to an address on Willoughby Drive in Niagara Falls in response to another shooting. Uniformed members and 2 district detectives attended this scene, and as a result of their investigation, a male suspect was identified and arrested on August 10th with the assistance of our emergency task unit. He is facing charges of discharged firearm with intent to wound, point firearm, and careless use of a firearm. No one was injured as a result of this incident. On Friday, August 16th, Sergeant Mike Langley was on general patrol in central St. Catharines when he noticed a large amount of smoke coming from a residence. Sergeant Langley approached the residence and attempted to awaken the occupants without success. He managed to gain access into the residence on his own, and once inside encountered thick smoke while proceeding through the residence in an attempt to locate any occupants. He eventually located the lone occupant of the residence and was able to safely escort him from the residence prior to the arrival of the fire department. The cause of the fire was not suspicious in nature, and damage to the residence was minimal. On Thursday, August 22nd, officers from the in the area of Effingham Street and Pelham Road in St. Catharines worked in response to public complaints of speeding and aggressive driving. During a 2-hour period in this location, 37 provincial offense notices were issued. One vehicle had its plates removed and another was towed. Another vehicle was stopped for driving 104 kilometers an hour in a 50 kilometer an hour zone, and 2 drivers were found to have no licenses at all. Several were ticketed for speeding over 40 kilometers an hour over the limit. On the 22nd of August, 2 district uniform members were called to the area of Drummond and Dunn Street in Niagara Falls over the reports of a vehicle driving erratically. An officer was able to initiate a traffic stop, but was subsequently dragged a short distance following an interaction with the driver. 1 shot was fired by our officer involved towards the vehicle. No injuries were sustained in this incident. The suspect fled in the vehicle and the officer was taken to hospital where he was treated for minor injuries and released. On the 23rd of August, a male suspect was arrested and charged in relation to this incident. During the summer of 2019, One District Street Crime began investigating the sale of fentanyl and cocaine at a residence in Thorold. On the morning of the 29th of August, the St. Catharines Street Crime Unit, with the assistance of our Special Investigations Unit, 3 District Street Crime, and again our Emergency Task Unit and Traffic Enforcement Unit, along with officers from the Toronto Police Service Tactical Unit, executed search warrants at 2 residents in Thorold and 1 residence in Toronto. Execution of these warrants yielded approximately 1,158 grams of cocaine, so over 1 kilo of cocaine with an estimated street value of over $100,000, a long gun, a handgun, and approximately $105,000. 2 males from Thorold as well as a female from Toronto are facing numerous charges in relation to this incident. On Tuesday, September 3rd, our service conducted its 19th annual Back to School Traffic Safety and Awareness Day. Once again, officers attended dozens of schools across Niagara with the primary focus on crossing guard and student safety. Officers mostly looked for offending drivers who were speeding, driving while distracted, not wearing their seat belts, or who disobeyed a crossing guard or failed to stop for a school bus. Each year, our senior officers join members from across the service, including our uniform members, obviously, and specialty units who are not regularly assigned to uniform patrol duties. We're put on traffic patrol and put in uniform and head out to the local schools to take part in this initiative. In addition to this general uniform patrol, another 57 officers were able to take part in the initiative this year. New to the Niagara region this year are 2 new community safety zones. The first located at St. David's School on York Road, and the second at 20 Valley Public School located on Victoria Avenue in Vineland. Officers were present at both of these schools, handing out information cards explaining the details of these community safety zones, and we continue to attend these locations during school hours over the next few weeks to inform the public about the new changes. Any driver that is stopped and charged with an offense within these designated areas will be facing increased fines. If speeding is the offense, the fines will be doubled. Also beginning this first day of school, the Niagara Student Transportation Services have school buses that will be equipped with video cameras for both the DSBN and the Niagara Catholic District School Board. For the first few weeks of the year, 10 buses were equipped with video cameras, providing video evidence of the Niagara, to the Niagara Regional Police to support a complaint that is filed by a bus driver. The driver or the registered owner of a vehicle could be issued a ticket if the driver disobeys a stopped school bus with red overhead flashing lights activated. By the end of November, the NSTS hopes to have over 100 of their buses outfitted with these video cameras. The officers that participated in this project advised that most of the motorists were driving appropriately in and around school zones. However, there were still tickets and warnings that were issued. In total, 73 tickets were issued during the day, and 89 were for warnings were given out. Of the tickets issued, 45 were for speeding, 2 were for distracted driving, 2 for not wearing a seatbelt, and 24 others for various provincial offenses. In September, the service began investigating multiple theft and mischief incidents that have taken place at the Cathedral of St. Catharines of Alexandria, located at 13 Lyman in St. Catharines. One particular item stolen was a large bronze and copper lamppost. Further investigation by our one district members led to the recovery of this item on Friday, September 20th, and the arrest of a 60-year-old male from St. Catharines. On the 22nd of this month, uniform officers from 2 districts responded to Niagara College at the Glendale campus for a gun-related call. The investigation revealed that a man who is a student, however, resides off campus, had attended the campus residence. There was an altercation with other students who reside at the campus, at which point this man is alleged to have pointed a handgun. He subsequently fled the scene in a car prior to police arrival. This investigation led detectives to an address in the area of Cleveland and Richmond and Thorold, where officers located the suspect vehicle, and out of an abundance of caution, our crisis negotiators and emergency task unit members were called in. The Thorold residence was contained by officers, some nearby homes were evacuated, and other residents were sheltered in place. After nearly 6 hours from the commencement of the incident in Niagara-on-the-Lake, the suspect surrendered peacefully to ETU members after speaking with our negotiators. He was taken into custody and charged accordingly. This mercifully ends my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Board members, questions of the chief. Member Gale.
Thank you, and good job, Deputy Flynn, or Acting Chief Flynn. You must enjoy it when you come in and there's been 2 months off, eh? So my first question's a quick one. The community safety zones, I support that, but what's the difference between the St. David's one and I believe the other one's in Vineland to all the other places where it's 40 kilometers an hour around schools? I don't see a difference.
And I think it's through the recognition, Member Gale, that they are community safety zones, and I think this is something that we're on the front end of, seeing an expansion and actually identifying not just as a reduced speed area, but a community safety zone, because it might not always be related to schools as well. It could be parks, it could be other areas, but it's actually the identification as those areas where if there is an infraction, fines are doubled.
So is there a
depending on
thought
speed.
of any place where you've gone down to 40 kilometers an hour around zones with, some of them have lights over top, of just making that double fines and more enforced?
Well, I think that is the answer, and I think maybe moving forward, we're just seeing the front end of this identification as a community safety zone, as opposed to just an area where the speed was reduced, probably just a classification of it.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is a little bit longer, and you can defer to the chief coming back on an answer if you want. You mentioned about the people that were arrested for the fentanyl, and we know the ripple effect in all our communities with the opioids, fentanyl, et cetera, on the crime around the homelessness and things like this. And a matter of fact, after the Calgary Convention, I drove to Vancouver and went through the 4, well, you know where I'm talking, the homeless 4 blocks it was, and I was talking to a lady there, and she said that if opioids didn't cause this, they're certainly around here selling it to the people here because they're left with nothing, and this is what they've turned to, a lot of people there. My question to you is the sentencing with fentanyls and that appropriate? And you might not want to answer that with your position, and I could defer it to the chief, but we hear about the charges, we hear about the arrests, but we don't hear about the sentencing. And in the States, they're going after the big guys now. Even the region passed a motion to go after the companies to get on a class action lawsuit, I believe it was, on this. But we've got groups wrecking our society That could be organized crime, gangs, doctors that have gone, I know in the States, they've got some doctors that have been on 60 Minutes that have prescribed opioids for cash, companies that make this stuff. Is the sentencing appropriate for this? And is the classification of the charge appropriate? Simple trafficking. Maybe I'm going too far out there, but does it sometimes turn into a manslaughter or something like that when you know that what you're giving out is so bad that it's going to kill a lot of people? I mean, it's fairly obvious it's going to kill people. It's not just people are going to be hooked on this. And if you want to defer to the chief for when he comes back for an answer, I have no problem.
No, and that's fine. Thank you for the question, Member Gale. To give a fulsome answer, it would be longer than my report from this morning, I fear, because it's such a complex issue, but, you know, obviously.
Would you like to think about this and respond back when we're in Pelham on that?
Well, I don't know that we can, to a great degree, you know, comment on the, you know, respecting judicial independence, but I think we have seen a move across our country and certainly across our area that the courts are recognizing the seriousness and the life, you know, destroying aspects that we're seeing around the opioid addiction. I think what we need to do is continue to concentrate as a law enforcement agency to make sure that we continue to treat it seriously, that we give it priority, and that we work together, not just across law enforcement, but with the support industries and the health industries, and trying to raise everybody's awareness to try and stop future events from happening. My apologies, there was a second part to your question, but I think, with respect, yeah, and that actually is happening in our country. There was a recent report from the Ontario Provincial Police, I believe it was, I may be wrong on this one, that I believe in the last year or few years that there have been 11 charges relating to the death of opioid users, where people have been charged criminally, whether it's a manslaughter charge or something of that nature, where they ought to have known. There obviously are some significant challenges with proceeding and with being successful in those cases, because so many of these actions happen, you know, out of sight and in such a clandestine nature. But our homicide unit, our members and our members in CIB are alive to those issues, that those are those become part of the sudden death investigations that we do, where it's not just about talking about, you know, the cause of death, but investigating as far as we can to try and understand where opioids came from. And if certainly we can establish that somebody knowingly was providing something that could cause somebody else's death, we'll pursue those charges as well.
So, not asking for your opinion, but have you found that sentencing with judges now in this, well, this one hasn't come to court yet, but fentanyl-related or opioid-related things has gone up? Have you found that? I'm not asking for your opinion.
Yeah, and I would only be able to provide opinion on that. I mean, I think that would probably be something that we may be able to provide the board, whether there's any statistical information related to opioid offenses, trafficking, and whether those sentences have risen over the last few years, but I couldn't just say off the top.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I want to know if we should speak out, be it as a region, be it as a city, citizen, police board, or whatever, that the sentencing isn't fitting of the crime for how bad this has gotten. And that, so if you can let us know, or have the chief let us know on that in a further meeting, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to Acting Chief Flynn. The theft from the cemeteries, what's the nature of what's being stolen? Just a little bit more detail on that. Are they stealing the plaques for metal purposes to get money, or are they just, was it a malicious group just damaging, or do we know?
My understanding, sir, is that that the material was largely involving brass, and that it was either a plaque or a medallion style that was mounted, that was being stolen, and it was being done for you know, the cash value of the items.
Okay, thank you.
Member D'Angelo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Acting Chief Flynn. I just want to make sure I got my numbers right here, but you talked about the school buses coming in with video cameras. I know there's 10 of them right now, that project. You mentioned that there were 73 tickets issued. early part of the school season, were those, any of those resulting of the video cameras, or were those separate of the video cameras?
Thank you, Member D'Angela. My understanding is that those tickets were actually in relation to that day. I don't believe we received any complaints in relation to the video cameras until probably within, stand to be corrected by one of the superintendents, but within the next week or 2 weeks, I think we processed our first complaint that way.
Okay, so it's only been one complaint using the video, as a supplementary question. That's what I was trying to get at. Are the cameras being an effective tool in terms of identifying cars that are going through these bus arms? Because I know when I brought my children out to the bus stops, there's always cars driving through that. They didn't seem to really pay attention. So I'm hoping the video cameras actually heighten the awareness, and also that there's tickets issued or even warnings so that people become more aware of that, and then reduce, you know, actually increase safety measures for the children around those buses. So you've only seen one ticket so far because of the video cameras?
I don't know that there's been others. That was the first one that I heard about, which was within, my memory is a week or two of the beginning of the school year. Keep in mind as well that I think the pilot started with 10 school buses, and that the plan is to have over 100. So we've also tried to prepare ourselves on our side to receive that information and understanding how to get it before the courts in the appropriate way, because it's certainly a new, a new aspect for traffic enforcement for us.
Okay, just through you, Mr. Chair, just in the future, if you could come back with a report regarding that, updating how it's being implemented successfully, or what are the concerns that might have to be addressed from a police board. If there's additional resources that are required for that, that might be something that we have to look at in the future. So that's the only comment. The other one, I wanted to just thank the Acting Chief Flynn regarding the Thorold arrest, regarding the cocaine, the guns, and the cash. You made a lot of residents in the Thorold area quite happy by doing that. It had been something going on for quite a while, and I know you put resources towards that. So I really appreciate that. That was a positive news story for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And with respect to the reporting, Chair, we already have a traffic study or traffic enforcement report that the board receives. I think that is something that that we'll take note of easily enough on future reports.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to add from the acting chief's report, a lot of good news stories on the bus cameras. I think there was a press release that went out from the service a couple of days ago regarding the video, so they have one ticket issued for it. I think the other side of a coin is also, I'm impressed with the public respecting the school buses, as they should be. Otherwise, we'd be seeing a lot more of those. But it's obviously the video cameras within the bus services will be another effective tool for an enforcement perspective. So I encourage the bus company to deploy them as they're able to, and for us as an organization to be able to process that information and result in an offense being issued at the appropriate time. With regards to the break and enters, I think that's excellent news, especially concerning the number of businesses that were involved in that, and special thanks going out to the 3 street crime units within the region that worked and participated in that. A good show of operational unity within the service to address issues. And last, the Cops Ride for Cancer. I wasn't totally aware what the final number was, but that is a very good number. It's certainly a greater amount than what we collected last year, what the goal was last year, so we did very well on that. And also from a community perspective, touching the 23 schools in this region is excellent. It again puts the police and the school-age children in a better relationship, which again is very important. It coincides with our ongoing school resource officer program, which again something the board fully supports as well. So moving on the agenda, we have the next item is a presentation by the Motorcycle Ride for Dad. And if I could have...
We're just going to move that one first.
Right, we're going to do the Motorcycle Ride for Dad. So we could have, Lathan? What's his name? He's coming up. Okay, gentlemen. The podium is yours. Don't forget to push the button.
So Motorcycle Ride for Dad, Niagara was formed in 2010. So this year was actually our 10th ride. Over that 10 years, we've put into over $225,000 back into prostate cancer research and awareness, including 3 studies that were done right here in our own NHS. Last year, we had $25,000 donated to Niagara Health Systems to do a study that will lessen the effects of the treatment of prostate cancer. So we had 8 participants in this area that are being studied for that. And from that study, they're going to be able to look at how to reduce the effects of the treatment, which can be devastating even more than disease. So we've had 225 riders, and we raised over $75,000 this past year, and which was a record, and we're really proud of that. And we wouldn't be able to do it without the support of the Police Services Board and Niagara Regional Police. We rely on a lot of resources to be able to make it a successful ride, and we thank for the participation. Thank you. And I have a plaque to present to the Chief and to the Police Services Board, please.
Thank you. I'm going to join you in just a second. Just to comment on that, out of the 10 rides, I only missed 1. That was due to an issue I was having with my eye during that point in time. I did participate in this year, and I have in the 9. It's an excellent cause, and certainly for us as an organization to support that, I think it's very well received in the community. And I know there's a number of motorcycle rides for dads that take place across Ontario, and most of them have a fairly good police support group within them. So I'll join you in that presentation. I'll ask the Chief, Member Eek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in the interest of the public, I think we need to have the names of the presenters expressed here this morning. Thank you.
So we have Matt King. Am I correct in that? And Paul Webb.
That's
Here.
correct. Thank you very much.
So thank you for that. The next presentation we have this morning is from the Christian French Child Advocacy Center for Niagara.
Mr. Chair, we need a motion to receive.
Oh, sorry. Still come forward. I just need a motion to receive from Ride for Dad, Member Eek, seconded by Member Gibson. All in favor to receive? Thank you. So I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves as well, just for the record. Thank you.
I want to introduce myself. I'm Janet Handy. I'm the Executive Director of the Kristen French Child Advocacy Center, Niagara. I have with me Mark Doyle, who is our Board President, and retired former Deputy Chief Frank Parkhouse, who is also on our board. And they're here to answer any questions relating to the center after I give my presentation. So thank you for this time. The Kristen French Child Advocacy Center provides a safe place for children to disclose their abuse experiences to joint police and facts investigation teams in a child-friendly and welcoming center. We were the first fully operational child advocacy center in Ontario, and we've been open since 2008, so we're just finishing our 10th year. And we are now one of 32 that are established or in development across Canada. More than half of those centers are now in Ontario. This is an international model of excellence in joint investigation for children and youth who have experienced child abuse, and has been endorsed as the model of choice for interviewing children by the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police. It was aptly renamed in 2014 to the Kristen French Child Advocacy Centre. The centre partners, staff, board, and volunteers work tirelessly to sustain the centre in our efforts to provide Niagara's children and youth with this safe place. Our purpose then is primarily to provide this non-threatening neutral place. We minimize the number of times children must repeat their experience before CACs. They may have had to repeat that experience up to 7 times. In the ideal world, the interview recording goes forward, and anyone who needs to see that interview can then see it without re-interviewing the child. And we provide the coordinated partner's response, and that significantly reduces the trauma associated with disclosing abuse. We believe that that can change the course of a child's life. Working together, our police partners gather evidence and determine criminal charges. Facts, child welfare determines child protection needs and does assign special support staff to families during and after investigation. We fundraise so that our third partner, Family Counseling Center, can actually provide immediate, no-wait mental health support for children afterwards. Partners can call in medical personnel to assess children if needed. And we host the investigators, we greet families, we direct incoming calls, and we make sure that the center stays open for this special need. That coordination ensures that the developmental and victim needs of Niagara children and youth are considered first when they're encountering the justice systems meant to support them and not increase trauma. The benefits, some of our larger centers across Canada have been able to do return on investment research now, and have found that children report being less scared. Caregivers are more satisfied with the procedure and investigation. And CACs refer more children for both mental health services and preventative and injury-related medical exams. For professionals in the community, when they work together, they better understand each other's roles. They improve team results through case review, and fewer children fall through the cracks. And an estimated savings of 32% is realized when an investigation is under a CAC-coordinated setting rather than the siloed settings in other communities. We host, on average, 1 investigation a business day. Over 10 years, more than 3,000 children and youth have found our safe place to disclose abuse. We've grown from hosting 50 to 340 interviews per year. Last year, we had 310 interviews involving 519 children and youth. Children come from every municipality in Niagara. We are a regional service. In other words, there's not a municipality that does not experience child abuse impacts. And when we underreport or undertreat child abuse, it can affect a person for a lifetime. We know now that a child who suffers abuse is 30 times less likely to graduate from high school. A youth who suffers abuse is 26 more times likely to be homeless. And an adult survivor of child abuse is 2 times as likely to be arrested. Our strategic plan calls for collaboration on a number of levels. We start with not duplicating any services within the region in programming or in fundraising. So we try to collaborate on both those levels. We're committed to that beyond the investigation collaboration itself. We reach out to youth and interagency and provide community learning opportunities in joint strategies for awareness, prevention, and viable responses to the crime of child abuse in our Niagara communities. A Trillium grant gave us the opportunity for the past 3 years to reach out to 12 to 15-year-old youth through several avenues, 2 of which included Teen Connect, an awareness education presentation in our schools, and Teen Creative, which is an arts program, and we collaborate with Foster Festival. Teen Connect has been around for a long time and is really the first major partner effort that we made at the center. We revamped the presentation for the schools 4 years ago with our partners and developed a new video, and our partners now allow our youth outreach coordinator to go forward and give that presentation on the partnership's behalf. And we began a collaborative website called PCAN. PCAN is Partners to End Child Abuse in Niagara. There's 14 partners in that collaboration, and it's basically a database information program, speaker for any child abuse awareness, prevention, and response programs that are available to teachers, professionals, parents in the Niagara region. So I've spoken about the Teen Connect program and the Teen Creative. We also have created a youth advisory council in the last few years to help people like myself and my buddies back here know how to communicate on the internet. And we've also got a younger group, Kathy's Kids, named after Kathy Collins, a longtime volunteer with us. Again, a creative arts group for ages 9 to 11. We have no core funding from the government as of yet. We've been working on sustainability from the government for a long time. And it doesn't seem to matter what party is in power. So that's a constant kind of effort. Our fundraising sources are based on tireless fundraising by volunteer staff and partner support. We receive funds from 3 areas. We do events, campaigns, and a planned giving program. That accounts for 40% of our budget. Our partner support from NRPS and FACTS accounts for 30% of our budget. And the grants, foundations, and service clubs, endless kind of writing of grants and time-limited, project-specific money counts for another 3% of our budget, 30%. We always end our presentations with the following to the public and to anyone that we are presenting to at all, that we ask you to report child abuse. We realize it takes the community to be vigilant, and we emphasize that you don't have to decide what's happening, you let the professionals decide that, but to please be involved in being vigilant and reporting child abuse on behalf of children and youth in Niagara. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Board members, questions? Well, I have attended a number of your functions over the last couple of years and certainly appreciate the work that is being done, and I know this has streamlined the investigative process for our officers, and we're grateful for being able to leverage the advocacy center, and I certainly view the trauma reduction from the use of the video so that the child isn't repeating the story over and over again. So I appreciate that. I know the funding issue has always been front and center. It's something certainly we as an organization would support, that the funds being made available at a provincial level. And I'm always surprised when every year I hear that the province is not stepping up to what I would consider something that they should be addressing. Certainly the child advocacy issues are not just unique in Niagara, they're unique in Ontario, probably across the country as well, but I can't speak for other jurisdictions. But I would certainly hope that the political will is there that supports you going forward. So the service is a partner in this, and I certainly know that that has worked extremely well for our investigative side of the house, as I refer to it, and certainly look forward to that relationship continuing as we move forward on that. And again, thank you for the work that you're doing and the presentation. With that, thank you very much for this.
Thank you. Thank you.
And good to see Deputy Chief Parkhouse out.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we need a motion to receive the report. Member DeAngela, seconded by Vice Chair Steele. Show of favor, hands. Thank you. So we will now move into the rest of our agenda. This is the consent portion. It deals with items 162 through 176. If I could have a mover and seconder to put the block on, Member Eek, seconded by Member DeAngela. Any discussion on the items? If you just reference the number. Member D'Angelo and then Member Eek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just item 163. That's the quarterly report, special fund administration. Just a quick question, if someone could answer it. I was looking at the activity of, in the special fund, there's approximately 79,000 that was deposited, but then it came out a few days later. Can there be a little bit of an explanation on that one?
Chief?
It's on the final page.
Okay, yeah, it's on the last appendix 2, you mean, page, right?
Thank you, Chair. I'll turn to Director DiDonato DeCellis to help us with that.
So there are situations where we have funds that need to be transferred to the province that are seized in investigations. So we need to deposit the funds into a bank account because a lot of times it's cash. And so we deposit the funds in here and we issue a check to the province for those seized funds.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That explains. I knew it was an easy answer, just had to find the person with it. Thank you. I do have another item. I don't know if anyone was speaking to this item, but I have item 168.
Member Eek, was yours a different item than the funding?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to speak to 173, please.
Okay, I'll let Member D'Angelo go first, and then I'll come back to you on that one.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is 168, it's the annual report, the Marine Unit for 2018. First of all, I want to thank Acting Chief Brett Flynn organizing the tour we had the other day where we were able to see the Marine Unit and other units of the service. So I really appreciate that. It opened my eyes in seeing what our capabilities are from a Marine perspective, and I thought it was excellent. So it just leads me to, again, it's a quick question. If you don't have the answer now, you can look into it. I was just looking on page 3 of the report. It talked about, it gave statistical operational comparisons. The one item, community public safety events, the previous 2 years it was in the mid-20s, and then in 2018 it dropped to 12. Is there a reason for that dropping? I guess I'm looking, is that just because there's less events, or is that because we didn't have the manpower to do some of the community events? So just looking for a bit of clarity on that.
So I'll turn to Superintendent Ash, who's in charge of our emergency and investigative services, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir, and through you, Chair. To be honest, I don't have the exact reason, but I may suggest that in some cases it would be in the 2 previous years, having had the opportunities to make presentations and join groups like Pocomar and Port Colborne and Gamru and Grimsby, that we may have done events that don't need to be repeated each year. I don't know that it would be resource related, but I will take that back to the team and just confirm if we missed opportunities due to resources and report back.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's an excellent answer. I like the fact that you'll go back and look into it. It's just, I like the proactivity when the service does that, and if there's an opportunity there that's being missed because of resources, I think that should be highlighted. If not, if it's just activities that aren't renewed or aren't coming forward every year, that's fine also. But thank you for the efforts on that, and like I said, having a better understanding of the Marine Unit, any proactivity is excellent activity, so thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Member Eek?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to speak to item 173. It's the annual report, Community Patrol. And I'm using this to speak to an issue regarding a meeting I attended yesterday, and I was approached by a regional counselor that had some concerns expressed by the public that it was a public meeting that St. Catharines held last week with respect to issues relating to the downtown core and businesses, concerns, and issues. And his thoughts were that a number of key items were expressed, the concern for vagrancy, threats they felt for retailers and their patrons, issues around stealing, and there was a feeling, I guess, of threats to their potential customers and clientele. And I know this is not the first time we've heard this, but because it came from the public, I wanted to bring it and address it, that this is still an issue of concern. And while at the meeting, I guess expressions from both businesses and from the public felt that this was a serious issue that needed to be addressed. And there was a feeling that policing was represented, that there wasn't a clear pathway or steps that could help resolve this issue. And so it was brought to my attention that we need to perhaps establish some type of a strategic plan to address this issue, because it's allowed, if not addressed, to carry on and cause grave concerns. And so I just bring that forward, and I hope that we can address this again and perhaps establish an approach. Now, when I asked that individual, because it's a difficult solution, I said, well, what's your solution? And of course, his response, I think, was perhaps like many. He said, we need to see more police presence in the downtown core. And I said, well, that's cost associated. He says, I know, but we need to have that presence. So that's a major issue that's relevant to costs and budgets. But anyways, I just chose this item on the consent just to express those feelings from the public, and I don't know whether you want to comment regarding that, but I just wanted the board and the public to know that it's an issue that we are all aware of and that we all know needs to be addressed. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Just before, if a chief wishes to comment, but a presentation was made a year ago. We increased our street patrols by 2, so there is a patrol presence separate and I wouldn't say separate and apart, but focused in the downtown core of St. Catharines. I know the service is fully aware of the issues. A majority of it is social economic versus a police response. However, on the 3rd of October, Mayor Senzik will be doing a presentation here to the board, and I would suspect those issues will be brought up as they were a year ago, and we would be able to have a fulsome discussion with him during his presentation on the 3rd of October. We've had a number of I know the service is represented at a lot of the community meetings in St. Catharines. I believe the inspector assigned to one district is usually in attendance. So the service is well aware of what the issues are. It is, again, I will always comment, not every single issue out there is an issue that police can resolve. And that's why I pointed out, a lot of it deals with social economic issues that are addressed by other agencies and that. So it's not just us, it's a partnership of many. And the fact that there is ongoing discussion in St. Catharines, hopefully the other agencies that provide social economic support would also be in attendance in that, because it's not just a, quote, policing issue. We're part of it, but the social economic part is a lot larger. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, sir, for your comments. Our service is very alive to the issues that continue to cause concerns for citizens and businesses in downtown St. Catharines. You know, just echoing the comments of the chair in relation to the issues. You know, a police presence perhaps helps in some situations deter some crimes from happening. The reality of it is that, I mean, people are trying to make a living in our downtowns and through their businesses, and on occasion feel very hampered in doing that by the presence of people who you know, have negative behaviors in front of their stores. We all get that the long-term answer is not to move people along. That's really the problem. The question becomes, move you along to where? So yeah, we will continue to work with our partners. Just, Chair, as an add-on to that partnership piece, and the board has heard about this over the last number of years, the government has mandated through the Minister of Solicitor General, through the Police Act, the community safety and well-being plans that will have to be in effect by the end of next year. We're meeting and in partnership with the region, with public health, and bringing other partners on board. It will not be an easy task, because we have 12 municipalities who have different needs across our region, but we're going to look, much like we did with our strategic plan from a policing focus, we're going to look at it from that larger community lens on what are the issues that are causing issues in our community, the negative aspects, drug abuse being one of them, homelessness, and trying to bring all of those partners to the table on almost like a massive hub scale, so that everybody understands their role and everybody's contributing in the same way or the same, is aware of what their partners are doing. And I think going forward in the long term, those are great relationships to build as a whole community, as the region. So, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, just a follow-up, thank you very much for your comments, and certainly it's a complex issue that's not to just be dropped solely at the doorstep of the police department. And I'm hoping that, in your indication that Mayor Sendzik will be coming to this board, I'm hoping that he will be bringing perhaps some type of a strategic plan that he would like to see us involved as one of the partners, as expressed by Acting Chief Flynn, that there's many people that need to partnership for a solution in this. So I just have the feeling that the representative that came to me and the public want to see perhaps a more defined strategic plan. And it certainly does involve more than the policing, but I just wanted to highlight the issue, and I thank you for all the comments around the table. Thank you.
Member Steele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad the member brought this up. Just yesterday, I hosted, along with one of my councillors, Councillor Desmarais in Port Colborne, a round table. We've seen a very large uptick in homelessness in Port Colborne. It's been an issue where we are. Places like Grimsby, Niagara Lake really don't have a homeless problem, yet we do. Welland, St. Catharines, Niagara Falls specifically. So we brought our stakeholders together. So we had our 6th District Police there, Staff Sergeant LaPlante and Jay McKnight. We had Port Cares, we had the region, we had 2 large landowners that we have a homelessness problem on their land. They were there with their concerns and what they're doing as organizations. We had, just trying to think who else is around the table. Bridges Community Health Center was represented. So we're doing that in Port Colborne with a strategy. So we're doing short-term and long-term. And it was well said around the table from all participants that they understand that, in essence, a lot of this is not a policing issue. It's what the chair talked about, socioeconomic. So we do have some pretty good programs right now. As you guys know, the Port All program that Jay helps lead with our community is very successful in Port Colborne, and how he has worked and is working with the homeless in Port Colborne, specifically those that want to remain homeless. We've tried to help them. They are a very small number, but he sees them almost on a daily basis, finds out what's going on, what kind of help can we get them into, and that's how our agencies get involved. So we are starting to broaden our strategic plan with regards to this, because it's just not homelessness. There are other issues within our community that we're working on, but the same groups are involved in really all those aspects. So with regards to that issue, we are moving forward. So, and it does affect our 2 downtown cores, our Humberston core and our Clarence Street, King Street core. So, you know, and our businesses are moving forward. My big comment to our public is, please report it. Whether it's a 911 call or just our regular phone number where you can give a report to the Niagara Regional Police, or most of the time, go online, let us know what's going on in your neighborhood so that our detachment can react accordingly. If they see that there's never any issues in a neighborhood, they may not patrol there as often. But once those calls come in, then we can take our resources and use them appropriately to look after areas where we're having issues. So, but we are having an issue with our public not always letting us know what's going on so that we can respond. So we really want to get that out there, that, you know, we're here to help, plus we have other agencies that will help us as a police organization. So just as, again, it may not be always a policing issue, but we can get these people in touch with the right organizations to get some help. So, thank you.
Member Kale.
Chair, is the special finance meeting on October 3rd solely about the St. Catharines coming in? Oh,
No, our budget is being presented by
Yeah,
the
that's what I thought.
service, and that was an opportunity for the mayor to come before us with a number of the issues similar to what we had a year ago.
does it tie into that finance meeting?
I suspect it does.
Okay, I'm wondering if you should be contacting, maybe this will blow it out of the water, but we have the issue of the public library in Niagara Falls and other spots where we have crime and people hanging around and things like this, whether you should let other mayors know that this is happening here with the mayor coming here, because St. Catharines has been here twice in the last year. And I just don't want it, what about me? I don't want Smithville to think, what about us? And that, so send it out to them and say, we have the mayor making a presentation on his issues. If anyone else would like to come in too, because at least they can either join in or whatever, but at least it's not a what about me type scenario.
The board welcomes any type of presentation. We're not closed to that. What I would like to see is more of a unified presentation. If it's an issue, which I'm hearing across from other municipalities, I would almost be prepared to have a separate meeting specifically to deal with that issue of the mayors coming in to have that discussion.
I would support that fully.
And maybe that is, St. Catharines is, quote, already on our agenda for the 3rd. Certainly on the 3rd, we're not going to make a decision on the budget. That's our first round, if you want to call it. But I would certainly be interested in hearing on the homeless issues from the other municipalities. And I think in short order, we could make it almost like a round table and have them come in and say, look, what's going on? As Vice Chair Steele pointed out, a number of areas are presently not affected by the issues, and a lot certainly are impacted. And Niagara Falls, Welland, St. Catharines, and Port Colborne are. I haven't heard anything from Thorold, but I'm sure they're probably not immune. But maybe that would be a different approach, that we have them come in and have that type of discussion.
I agree.
We haven't done that, and maybe this is an opportunity, because the problem is not just St. Catharines, it's across the region. And I would really like to hear not just the policing component of this, but I would like to hear some address from different regional social agencies dealing with the social economic direction and where they're going on this, because it's a partnership of a lot of people.
The thing is, I know with our meetings going around, we did it mostly so people in Wainfleet and others know that we care about them. They knew that already, but we wanted to explain around there and give them a chance to talk to us because we're in the big cities. Now, last year, or in the last budget, we have 2 officers walking the beat in St. Catharines. Niagara Falls immediately called me at that time and said, what about our casino area in there? We asked for that. And Port Colborne could be asking, other cities, Thorold could be asking as well, what about us? And I want to get away from that. I want to, like you say, all come in now and explain it, and you can vet if they're on the same page and have one spokesperson or whatever you want. But they look at St. Catharines as being the one that comes here the most. Certainly it's the biggest city, but I don't want anybody to think we're giving favoritism or anything like that. There's certainly a problem.
Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. So, Member Gale's point is well taken, and we should have all the mayors involved here. I've had the experience of working in this environment before with extreme homelessness, drug abuse, that sort of thing, when I was in charge of a detachment in the Lower Mainland of British Columbia. And what happens is we brought our every support team together that we could, everybody who had a stake in the homelessness, from like Port Cares, Bridges, everybody, the police, we were a very small part of the component, very small actually. And we worked on it in 2 communities, Chilliwack, which was a huge homeless problem, drug problem there. But the interesting thing was we had effect there, but as soon as you push there, then it comes out somewhere else. And so it's not a single city effort, it is a region effort. And to know that when you do create an effective strategy in St. Catharines, then it's going to come out in Thorold, then it's going to come out in Port Colborne, and then it's going to, if you push there, it's going to come out somewhere else. So there's a segment of our society that that lives this lifestyle. And so it's not a matter of just pushing in one spot and trying to stop it there. It will come out somewhere else. So it's a region-wide strategy. So Member Gale's point about bringing all the mayors together, all the interested parties, is a significant point, and it's a strategy that we should use. So, thank you.
Vice Chair Gibson, Steele.
Thank you. I totally agree, because in yesterday's meeting, we had a report through the region with regards to a lot of these people migrate. So they did a survey in St. Catharines where they went to these homeless people, or who they believed, and it was amazing how many said they were from Port Colborne, yet they were in St. Catharines. So they do migrate. So as you said, it is an issue through the whole region. But I think we should prepare for this meeting a little bit more than just having them. I think it needs to be a special meeting, but we need to have the region here because they're a great asset and a great resource with regards to what is actually going on, the housing issue, which is probably the biggest issue of this whole thing, is the housing or lack thereof. And then there's agencies within Niagara that actually work together with regards to these issues. So, we should probably put a good plan in order so that, and we're already involved, so we know our involvement in certain areas, whether it be St. Catharines, Welland, Port Colborne, but specifically the program Port All and Port Colborne is looked at as if we expand it, or it is expanded, it's a very good model to follow because it does work. So, we do have some good resources. We have the information available. It's just putting those together in a coordinated coordinated program. So I think we need to sit down as a service and a board to put a tack together on how we really want that day to work. Because as I said to the people yesterday, I am not a person, and in that case I'll put my mayor's hat on, to have meetings just to have a meeting and, to be quite frank, waste people's time. We have to have a real purpose for this. So you can have your initial meeting to lay the groundwork, and then some of those people may not need to come back all the time, and you're bringing in the meat and potatoes of those groups and organizations that really need to move forward with this, because we're all involved with it together, because it is happening in the region, but not really the entire region. So there are going to be different aspects from other municipalities. Kevin and Wainfleet, I don't really think it's a real huge issue out there that you're really hearing about. Not to say that you may not have homeless, but it's just not at the top of their pecking order right now. So I think we really need to know how we want to move forward. So I think we need our service members to kind of give us an idea of kind of an agenda that we want to have for this, and how our organizations are going to fit into this. So I think we really need to be careful on this, on how it works.
Member D'Angelo?
I can use those comments there. Be careful, because are we taking the lead on this? Because by having a meeting, drawing everyone in, and us doing it, then we're all of a sudden taking a lead on an issue that we're part of the solution. But, I look at it's more of a responsibility of the region. They have the homelessness program, they have the housing program. The region should be, and in terms of all the mayors wanting to come to these meetings, when I was mayor, we used to have mayors meetings. This is a good area where you can have a roundtable discussion amongst the mayors and how to strategize to move this forward. But I think us taking some sort of lead on this, I think that's not a very good move in terms of strategic-wise, because we're only a small component of it. And then if it falls on our lap, then all of a sudden the service is now the lead on this, trying to put all these groups together. I don't see that being an effective way, because I think there's greater resources from the region that should be participating in this. I think we could send a letter to the region. You have 3 regional councils here. Work with your agencies, put a meeting together, and then make sure our service is well represented and invite the board members at that point in time. But I don't see us taking the lead on this. That's just my perspective. I think it's a worthwhile cause, but I think you have to put it in the hands that could affect it the most. And I don't think this is the group that's going to have the greatest impact on affecting homelessness and housing. Niagara Regional Housing plays a greater role in that. In terms of homelessness affecting all municipalities, I'll just give a quick anecdote. I was at Niagara Thorold Nonprofit Housing meeting just on Monday, and someone got into one of our buildings and they slept in the stairwell that evening. So we have some issues there that we have to deal with. So it's affecting all our municipalities. You may not be aware of it, but there's homelessness everywhere, and has to be dealt with. But affordable housing is one of the biggest key components. Niagara Regional Housing, and through the province, that should play a greater role, and through the federal government also. So just words of caution. I think there's other venues that this can be accomplished. I don't think we should be taking the lead on that, but hopefully I'm not misunderstanding our approach.
Before I go to Member Gibson, I would agree with that. I think this really belongs with the region's direction on their well-being plan that's being developed, of which we happen to be just one of the many agencies. I think that's where it lies. However, what I'm always concerned about is 12 mayors showing up here all asking for some additional resources. That is going to have a major impact on our operations. That I think we also need to make sure that we have a plan as to how that type of communications is coming into the board. Anyway, I will go with Member Gibson and then Member Eek.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. Just, I agree with that statement about the region really taking the lead. Having gone through this very same experience in two communities, sitting at the table, I was actually surprised how little involvement I had as a police officer there, as the detachment commander or representing the police. It was far more the housing, the food, the homelessness, the drugs. Everybody else in the committee was way more involved than the police, than we were. And so for us to take the lead would be, in my mind, improper, because it's really, my experience, a very small component is the policing of the fix for the problem. And one other thing too is that it's one of those issues where you have to keep your foot on the gas pedal. As soon as your group lets up, you go for a year and it fixes the problem and say, okay, we fix it. As soon as you take your foot off the gas pedal, it's right back again. So it's one of those long-term solutions that has to stay in place and keep working for a long time. So thank you.
Member Eek?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, I agree as well that perhaps we're not should not be the lead agency here with respect to a solution, but certainly we are a player, and I'm pleased to see the comments around the table that there is a need for the collective partnership of those people that can make a difference from the different agencies. And I believe that the region would be the one that has the largest resource that can help make a solution. But I think the bottom line is, this has been talked about. You said a meeting a year ago and whatever. We're not getting down to define responsibilities, perhaps. Maybe we need the provincial government or someone else, but we need to collectively get together and define a strategy that will build a positive solution to these elements that we're concerned about. So if we can do that today and come up with hopefully a collective group that will address this problem again, I'm very thankful. So thank you very much.
I would be quite prepared today, in the next day or two, get a letter out from this board to the 12 mayors, letting them know that we would look forward to them working collaboratively with the region to come up with solutions. In other words, trying to push the issue that's been out there for about a year and squarely put it back on the well-being and wellness plan. It's supposed to be developed by the region, and get that moving forward rather than, get it moving forward now. So I would be quite prepared, if the board is in agreement, to get sort of correspondence out to the mayors saying, we understand the issues, understanding it's not solved by policing alone. We're just one of the components of it. I would also say a fairly minor component in this, and ask them to move forward on some of the social issues that the region is supposed to be working on, and getting that dialogue going. Member Gale.
Yeah, Chair, as soon as the Vice Chair mentioned not long-term care, but affordable housing and that, I know that's when Member D'Angela perked up on that, and I agree that takes it out of our hands. We are just crime and we are just policing, but I don't think it hurts possibly to have it an annual thing that every year at this time, or pick a time, that we say that we'd like to know if there's any interest in the mayors, just to the mayors, and they can report to their councils and say, is there an interest in coming here with any of your issues? I think that's good for community, and that to invite them all here, and then at least they know what's happening. They know it's coming, and rather than St. Catharines coming here on their own, unless it's something special, and I get that. But I think that would be nice to say this is the start of something that we'd like to do annually if there's a need to it, and put it out there. But I agree, all the mayors should be invited to come with anybody they feel fit on it, but it's just crime and policing on us.
Vice Chair Steele.
Thank you. I mean, the only reason I talked about what I did is because now you're going to have every mayor coming forward, and some of this stuff is, just throwing money at it from us and put boots on the ground doesn't help the issues. It's far greater. So I agree with Member Gale. So I think the three of us can take the comments around this table back to the region, hopefully get something going there, more of a Niagara regional roundtable with very similar issues. And again, some communities and some mayors may not say, it's not an issue here, we're not going to get involved, or, but I think it's important. But because, and you're right, once a year, the mayors probably are good to sit down and talk about policing issues. But unless you do this, some of these mayors may keep coming to us and thinking it's totally a policing issue when it's not. So I think it's an education process for us, but it's also helping our people on the ground at the front line with the help that's already out there from other agencies, and how we can coordinate this even better than we do now. Not to say we do a bad job at it, but it can be done better. So if the three of us can do that, we'll talk about it and do that at a regional meeting, or through one of the, through public health, probably the best route to go. So I'll talk to my compatriots here, but yeah, but we have to be there. We have to be at that table. We are a component of this. Again, as stated, and you guys out there know, we are not the total issue here. We're not the be-all to end-all. It's far greater than that. But some mayors may not know this, and some councillors don't know it. It's a very big eye-opener for this. So I'll work with both Kevin and Bob on this. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I will turn to the acting chief.
Thank you, sir. Just very quickly, and what the board is discussing right now essentially is Niagara's community safety and well-being plan. I can advise the board that I met at a very high level last week, I believe it was, in a Niagara leadership meeting together with Mr. Tripp from the region, and a few other partners, including Niagara Health, Public Health, and the heads of both our university and college. Later this, in October, I believe, we will be hosting in this room one of the initial meetings of the Niagara Community Safety and Wellbeing Group, the leadership group, as we start to do exactly, and what Member Gibson talked about within his communities. We will start that process. Just very quickly, because Halton Region was really ahead of it and actually came out with a CSWB in advance of the provincial legislation. And I'll just take a few cues, if you have a second, from their website. It involves the Halton Region, the Regional Police Service, the local health integration networks that existed at the time, local hospitals, boards of educations, and municipalities. This group and specific action tables or working groups within identified areas within their municipality worked with the community to identify key issues, much like we did in our own strategic plan that was, operationally police-based, to find the right solutions to priority issues. So in Halton, they identified 7 or 8 issues: enhancing access to mental health supports for children and youth, creating a more coordinated approach to homelessness, improving the response to sexual assault, supporting youth exiting child welfare services. So listening to their community, those are some of the things that Halton identified as overarching issues within their community. I wouldn't want to lead where the discussion is going to go in our community, but I would expect homelessness and the opioid issue to be major events within Niagara that we can all agree on, that we need to work together on. And I can tell this board that that is happening and is going to happen. And actually, the legislation stipulates that also a member of the board, including the chief of police, will be involved in those discussions going forward. So you can expect that within a month. I think the only other thing the board may want to hear, just from a public meeting perspective, and I can help facilitate it, is whether you would want the leaders from Niagara region that are spearheading the project and the lead on it to maybe present to the board to help, sort of illustrate what that plan looks like from their perspective as well during one of your meetings here.
I would suspect that the plan is you're just starting into it. So, I mean, a report to the board might be premature at this point in time, but I would say maybe in the February, March timeframe, because if I'm not mistaken, it has to be in place by the end of next year. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Chair, and through the chief, I can certainly signal to the board when we have a framework that the board would be interested in hearing about.
So the meeting you just referenced, was that one of the first ones held?
So that, it was just a topic on a regular meeting that we attend in Niagara region, but it was one of the topics, and it's probably, this last meeting is something that's pushing us more towards operational realities within the CSWB.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other items within the consent component that the members wish to ask questions or talk about? Not seeing any. I'm just going to reference one item that I found in there, which was, where is it here? It is, this is the youth, it's item number 167. It is the one dealing with youth crime. I just wanted to comment on the use of the school resource officers. If you look at page number 6, you see from when the statistic starts here in 2011 down to 2018, it has been a downward slope. In fact, in 2018, we had 311 items, youth charge versus 686 back in 2011. A 50% reduction in that. And I would interpret in reading the report, this is based on the fact that our school resource officers are making a major change within our, major influence in our school system. And I commend the service for keeping that program going and moving forward with that in our schools in the Niagara region. So, Acting Chief, if you would communicate that back to the SROs of what I would consider a job well done, and also, again, it's all part of the community safety and well-being of our community, so another good item. Any other items from board members? So we have a mover and seconder already on this. Show of hands in favor to receive. Thank you very much. Our next item is number 177. It is the proposed meeting schedule for 2020, and if I would have a mover and seconder for that, please. Member Gibson, seconded by Member D'Angela. Just highlight on that, we are still not meeting in the month of August, and also in the month of December, we only have one meeting rather than the two, which we've had in a number of years. It also outlines the Ontario Association of Police Services Board Conference and the Canadian Association of Police Governance Conferences, and it blocks off those dates as well. So mover and seconder we have. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Item 178 is a trivia night fundraising for the Constable Dale Racine. It's a bursary item, or it's actually a report for, we're approving the Trivia Night Fundraising Initiative. Mover and seconder, please. Member Gale, seconded by Member Gibson. Any discussion on the matter? Chief, are you not commenting on this one, or no? Okay. Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Another good cause, by the way. 179 is a request for a special fund request for $1,500. It's this year's Run to Remember Runs from our area up to Ottawa, coinciding with the Memorial March coming up this Sunday. Mover and seconder for that. Member Eek, seconded by Member DeAngela. Any discussion on that? Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Next item is number 180. Special fund request, donation of $400 to the annual Crime Stoppers Golf Tournament to assist with costs. Mover and seconder, please. Member Gibson, seconded by Vice Chair Steele. Any discussion on this item? Show of hands in favor. Thank you. Next item is a public report back, please, on item C1. It is a report back on the draft operating budget for the Police Services Board. A mover and seconder, please, for that. Member Gibson, seconded by Member DeAngela. Any discussion from board members on this item? We had this before. This is a report back from a confidential session to public. Not seeing any. Show of hands in favor. So that deals with that. And is there any new business from any board members? Member Gale.
Thank you, Chair. Trying to word this nicely, you know I was not pleased with the fact that in the capital budget that we okayed the mobile command unit when the chief said that he didn't need it this year, the next 2 years would be fine. And I know the funding of the region. So there was 2 articles in the paper. I had many phone calls about this. I had counselors call me and say, what's up? Even a bank came to me and said, we'd help fund something like that through our corporate. I had a security outfit call me and say, why don't you go for donations on some of these capital items you have? Why don't you be like the hospital where you have rooms? And one guy said, you meet in a room, why don't you have it the Bank of Montreal room or something like that? I'm just coming up with a name. So 2 committees from now, I'm asking if we could have under your finance committee head, Member DeAngela, on the agenda, other funding opportunities. And I would like to make sure that Stephanie Sabrin is there as well, because she's communications. I think that she would add a lot as well, and that's through you, Acting Chief, or if the Chief is watching this, because I'd like to see the funding opportunities on this, because we know it's possible to do in Canada, because that's what happened with the Mobile Command Unit in Moncton, New Brunswick. It was fully funded by a private organization, and I could say it, but, well, it was already put in the paper, but I know the head office of that place. We also know that we had funding for the armored vehicle for it. So why aren't we looking at these things? Maybe if there's a law in Ontario, I understand all the bad things about this, but we have to think about these things. I mean, there's certain things that if it's bona fide items that are capital items that are small logos, why not have a bank that approach me that might kick in a portion of this and help some of our financing down the way? Or rooms at that new police station we're building down in St. Catharines. Why can't we have the bank of such and such room? I keep using banks, but I'm talking about billion-dollar organizations that really like to be tied in with police. Because that's what they did in the hospital. I know my family donated one room. If you're in a certain part in the emergency room, you'll see the Gale family room. It didn't hurt a thing, and that cost me, I believe, at that time, $100,000. But why not? Because it's a good place to be. Now, when you search and you go to donations to police, the biggest thing is the scams. So that's where somebody like Stephanie and people like that know through social media what we can do on these things and how we can handle it. We don't want to hire full-time employees to look for it. I understand what the chief said. That shouldn't be their job, and I get it. But why can't we put out there, when we have a big item, a big capital item or whatever, we're looking for funding opportunities, we're offering funding opportunities for different organizations. So I'd like to, under Chair DeAngela's leadership on a committee, 2 cycles from now, because I'd like to talk to the chief about this before the October 10th committee meeting. I'm talking the next cycle after October 10th, if we can have it on the agenda to talk about funding opportunities, because the public was overwhelming saying, why aren't you asking the public? If they're willing, mostly the corporate places, if they're willing to help finance and defer some of the costs that we have, and the chief is in agreement that it's not something that we're showing favoritism as a result of getting this, then those opportunities can be there.
Member Eek.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If what I just heard from Member Gale, if that's a motion that he would like to say, I'd be willing to second it.
I don't know if it's a motion, if you need it as a motion, I don't think so.
I think, well, I'm not sure we need it as a motion, but I think there needs to be a discussion, and I would turn to Member D'Angelo, who chairs our Finance Committee, and maybe Member Gale, if you wish to be involved, which it sounds like you are, to have that discussion with the chief, just to see where those opportunities. The thing that I always caution, and Member Gale, you referenced it, is, you know, this perceived the wording I'm looking for is
Favoritism.
favoritism, and that, which is something, you know, we need as a police service to be independent of that. I've seen too much of that south of the border, and that. I also, I mean, going forward, as much as we may have received some financial quote consideration on the armored rescue vehicle, the agency that, organization that provided the funding there did not want to be, quote, logo-eyed, you know, putting logos on. The command post, again, I mean, it needs to be showing that it's a police vehicle, not sponsored by a whole number of, quote, bumper stickers per se.
Chair, we're going to get into a full
Yeah.
conversation here, and that's why I wanted to make it on a finance 2 cycles from now, because I agree.
So this would give us, this would give yourself and Member D'Angelo, maybe myself, to have a discussion with the chief to see where that is and see what sort of opportunities we can pursue, because we're going to have capital items continually on this, and maybe this is another area that we should consider. But let's explore it.
But I think this should be open to public, and if we have a meeting, it's not public, the 3 of us with the chief, I think it doesn't hurt to have it in committee in public.
Oh, no, I'm not suggesting it goes into a camera session on that. I'm just saying we need to find out what the chief's opinion on that is. So, Member D'Angelo?
As chair of the Finance Committee, I have no issue with this, but I think we need some background information to make sure we can do this legislatively and other ramifications, pros and cons of this. So having that discussion, there should be some background information, and I think that's what you're leading to, Mr. Chair, is meeting with the chief to get some background information on this prior to having that open discussion. Again, it's always best to discuss stuff with some information in front of you as opposed to just talking off the top of the head. And that's why Member Gale has proposed this going to the Finance Committee meeting, which is a good suggestion. There could be some good dialogue there and some interaction with the service to make sure that we're doing things properly and moving forward and seeing what opportunities are there. Exploring that is not a problem. I think that's good. Mr. Chair, I just also wanted to mention, I know we had a tour of the Marine Unit and several other departments, and on the way back, I made a suggestion. I wanted to see the Mobile Command Unit for myself. I know, Mr. Chair, you were there, and Member Eek was able to attend after. I would advise the other members take an opportunity, arrange a time to go see the Mobile Command Unit. It does have some deficiencies in its operational components that the members should be aware of when looking at that. So moving forward with a new Mobile Command Unit, it's not to, and there was comments in the paper that this is another toy. It's not a new toy. It's a replacement of a unit that already is being serviced by our service. And it's beneficial by moving to a different type of Mobile Command Unit as opposed to one that's being pulled around by a truck with a trailer and with some of the deficiencies of its age coming forward. So I would highly advise members, if they haven't had a chance, to go actually look at the Mobile Command Unit. Makes decision-making a little easier, but that's one component, but the other component was look at how we're going to fund this and the timing of the funding of it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now, the existing one is massive in size. So anyway, we will go to the chief and get from him the direction as to what we can do from a Police Act perspective and that, and also the board policy that deals with some of these issues. And then we will throw this open to a public discussion at our Finance Committee. Any other new business from board members? Not seeing anything, so we are adjourning the public session, and we will reconvene in about 10 minutes. Thank you.